Okay, cool. So here is the code that I have. I did spacebar. So if you remember, I was like search input.get key down, and that will help. So I have an if statement that just says this is all I needed from you last week. You could have that those three lines would complete the assignment. So input.get key down, that is a Unity class, input.get key down. And if you search input.get key down, it actually even shows space. So that's why I put that one. Um, and in here, you can type like the types of spaces. They're listed as key codes. So you can look at key codes. There is a bunch of different key codes. Here you go. So this is how they're written. And if you like type those specific key codes, it'll use those key codes. Okay, no problem. So the only thing about get key as opposed to get key down or get key up, get key down only triggers when I press. If you have get key, as long as I hold it, it'll keep jumping. Does that happen with yours? You press and hold, yeah. So get key down. Let me show you. Will only detect one down, and it won't reset the down until I release it. So if I press play, I should press once, it jumps, and it doesn't jump again until I lift and jump. Now I can still go tap 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 tap. That still works because we haven't done that yet. But get key down at least is a little more robust than that. Get key will be as long as space is detected. Okay, and then you can also do get key up. So sometimes if you wanted to, like, if I'm jumping when I release, let's say the jump button, maybe you want something to happen, and that's when you can do like get key up when it's released. So where am I? Where is my script? Here. So that's all I needed. If input.get key down space. So if I detect a down key of space, it's going to add force exactly the same as this one. rb.add force, the same. So I'm adding force to the rigid body. New vector 2, 0, because I don't want to affect it in the x direction, only in the y direction. And then jump force. So I added a variable called jump force. You can hard code. I don't know what you did. Did you hard code or did you added a jump force? Okay. So then I added a public variable because then I can tweak that from the public. Perfect. So we have this. Everybody has this. It's moving. It's jumping. But our problem now is that it jumps more than once. So there's multiple ways I can solve this. But I'm gonna show you what if you remember what I was saying about a ground check. If you remember. So here's a new thing you're gonna look at. We're gonna look at something called triggers. So if I just create, remember that everything is on the player, right? I can even create it here, so I can add another collider. So box collider 2D. Let's zoom in to this. Here's, can you see the box there? So I'm just gonna edit the collider. Let me drag it below here. Let's have it. Maybe I'm gonna add a little bit to the edges as well. And this is the reason I'm gonna do that is I want this thing called coyote time. So I don't know if you've ever. Did I talk about coyote time? No? Okay, Coyote Time is. I don't know if you saw these really old cartoons with Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, and he jumps off the cliff and he's like, he stops for a while, like, oh, and then he falls. It's a term in game development called Coyote Time. It comes from that. So Coyote Time is basically just. We really need an eraser. If I have a platform and I have a space and I want to jump, if the player goes here and jumps at this point, perfect, they make it across. If they jump at this point, though, it technically it's not on the platform anymore. It doesn't detect. Now, in real life, technically this is correct, but in real life, when you play, a lot of players, for many different reasons. One is their reaction time is too slow. Maybe the computer they're playing on is a little old, and the physics actually is calculating here, but what's shown on the screen is that it's still here because the physics calculates faster than the visuals sometimes. So it might be here, and you think that it's there, but it's not. Um, so what we can do is we have coyote time so that even when it's here, it's still counted as being on the platform and it allows it to jump. So there's many ways I can do that. I can have an invisible collider that the platform has, but I think the easiest way is to have it on the player. And what I have is I have a ground check, and any ground that's inside this like square area, that trigger area, I will detect it as ground. And because I make it longer, I can detect as if I'm ground for longer. That's all. That's all I'm doing. So I want to use this as something called a trigger. So I just need to type is trigger. Have you seen triggers before, right? Okay. So triggers can detect collisions. They need a rigid body, which we have, so no problem. And we can use that now in code to detect the ground. For now, we're going to detect any collider. We can make it so it only detects ground or specific colliders, but for now, any collider, doesn't matter. So let's do that. So let's go here and in. I'm going to do it in, I'm just double checking here that it has to be outside. Okay, no, I have it in a separate script, but we can do it on the same script. Okay, so let's see. On trigger enter. Here, let's do it on trigger stay. So these are different types of things. On trigger enter is when it detects a collider entering. And 2D is the 2D version. On trigger exit is when the collider exits the trigger area. Stay is as long as it's detected. So you may want them to do at different times. For example, if I take a bullet, that will probably be on trigger enter because I don't want to keep like the bullet doing damage as long as it's in me. So you only want to do it and enter. An exit might be when I, let's say, enter a new level and I move forward. I want the door to close behind it. So that only happens once, so I do it on an exit. And in my case, I want to stay because I want to see as long as that trigger is in the ground, as long as that happens, keep doing this thing. So I want to stay. So I want to on trigger stay 2D. And this is a little bit confusing, but it's looking for on trigger stay 2D. It has a collider 2D. It means it's looking for a type collider 2D. That's why it's green. So it's that type. And then it's calling that type collider 2D it's calling it collision. The name is called collision. I can change this name to whatever I want. So I can be like whatever I want. It's fine. I can change it. All right. So that's just the name, but this is the type. It's looking for a type collider 2D. And then in this case, I don't care what kind of collider it is. So I don't really care what it is. So as long as it detects a collider, I'm going to make a bool called grounded. Okay. And I'll make it public so we can see it. So, bool grounded. So if I'm grounded, I'm on the ground. So as long as on trigger stay 2D, grounded equals true. So as long as I have a collider in there, let's just test that really quickly. Make sure that's working. Where is my player? Script is grounded is true. And let me just drag the player up, make sure that's working. Did grounded go false? Oh no, it hasn't gone false yet. Okay. It starts false, and it should go true when it hits the ground. Perfect. Okay, so because the trigger is detecting the collider, it goes true. Perfect. It doesn't go false because we haven't told it to go false. So now we can do the exit one. So void on trigger exit 2D. And then again, you can call it whatever you want. I'm actually going to rename that back to collision so I don't get confused. And in this case, grounded equals false. Simple. That's it. So that trigger now is telling me whether I'm on, not on the ground, but just like whether I am touching any collider. In this case, any collider means any collider, which means if I have an enemy flying in the air and I jump on top of it and I jump again, it will work because it's detecting any collider. So now on my input the get key down space, I want to do something to make sure it only jumps once. So I can say if grounded equals true, and I need to do a double and, input the get key down space, RB don't add force, then only then can I jump. So let's test that. So that works. Doesn't work. It only jumps when I'm on the ground. So now the question is, how do I do a double jump? Yes. So now, how, like, let's do it in class one. Let's get up to me, get up to my stage, and let's try and do a double jump. And I'll help you, of course, like if you have a problem. Let's see. Let me pause the recording. Yes, so the rigid body, if you're moving to, if the fall is too slow, which mine's okay, but generally on a platformer you actually have crazy gravity. Like Mario is like 15 times world gravity. So that'll be on the rigid body and you just like, I don't know, 10. But you probably need to, oh, that's too much. See, it's kind of going crazy. Let's do 5. So you see it's like very bouncy, right? And now let's make it, my jump force needs to compensate. So, oops, too much compensation. Okay, so it's like pretty good. Feels much better, right, than before. It was very floaty. So just change the gravity on the rigid body. And this is where I can go to my material as well. Let's see if I increase the bounciness. Does it do anything? No, probably like way higher. No. Slower. My gravity's too high. Nope. Do a delay. Also be aware though, I think because I increase the gravity so high, now when I move, it doesn't really move. So I'll probably need to increase the move force as well. And as we know, because I'm in play mode, all of these changes will be saved. So what I can do is I can right click here, copy component. So when I turn off play mode, it's not saved, but I can right click again, paste component values. So they're all copied. And then this was what 10, right? So they're all saved. Ah, so the bounciness was working. It's just it needed. I guess I need to like stop play mode for it to happen. I don't want to be that bouncy. No, let's not be bouncy at all. And to get it feeling right is a lot of like playing around, like tweaking the numbers and stuff, and trying to see what feels good. Okay. public int, because it's a direct number. We don't need point something. You can't have 0.2 jumps. That's one jump or no jumps. So public int, and we're going to call it number of jumps. Remember what I said about naming conventions? I'm following the small letter and then big and big. So number of jumps. So I now have this number of jumps. And number of jumps is going to be 2. I'm going to set that in code because I want it to be changeable, because maybe if I have a power up, it goes to 3 or 4 or whatever. So in the inspector, sorry, I'm going to change that to number of jumps. Where's my script? Here, 2. And when should number of jumps is 2 at the start. And when should it refresh? When I hit the ground. Yeah. Oh, so when I hit the ground. So that happens here. So then here it should be number of jumps. Set that to 2. Okay. So every time I hit the ground again, resets number of jumps to 2. Okay. So when should number of jumps go less than 2? Mm-hmm. So here, when it leaves the ground. Okay, so let's think about that. What could be a problem with that if I put it there? So if I have a platform and I fall off the edge, it's technically leaving the ground as well. So it's going to automatically minus the jumps and then I can't jump anymore. Now, is that okay? Do we want that? Yeah, so if I walk off the edge, it will minus jump number of jumps by 1, so I can jump 1 time. Is that correct? Do I want that? You don't? What do you want to happen when if I fall off the edge without jumping and I press the jump button while I'm in the air? What should happen? So I want to be able to do two jumps still. So that means I don't care about. That means my jump doesn't care about whether I'm in the ground or not, because this is 2 different designs. What we're talking about. One design is if I fall off, I have 1 jump left and I can still jump 1 time. Another design is no matter what, I fall off, I can always double jump. Which do we want? Which makes more sense from games that you played and stuff like that. So you can double jump, or you can double jump. Yes or no? Are we agreed? Yeah, I didn't press space. I just move, fall off. So, in my experience, though, usually when you have a double jump, when you walk off the edge, you can still do 1 jump because you have an air jump almost. Yeah, like I don't know if that's your experience. Usually, when I play platformers, I can jump and then I can air jump 1 more time. If I fall off the edge, I can still air jump. No? You have 1 jump. Or is that weird? We can test it. Just fall. Okay, well, let's do it that way. And let's see. And if it's bad, we'll change it. It's not a problem. Hmm. Okay. Okay, so that means if I just walk up the edge, I'm going to set number of jumps to 0, though, so I can't jump. Okay. Yes? Okay. 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 So that makes it a little more complicated. So we need to have another thing in jumping. We need to make sure. So if number of jumps, is greater than 0. And I'm going to remove the grounded now, because I want it to be able to jump even when it's not grounded. So as long as number of jumps is greater than 0. So when I go into the ground, number of jumps gets reset to 2. As long as it's greater than 0, it'll jump. And then let's do minus number of jumps every time I jump. So if I put minus in front of something, that'll just minus it. Let me just test this. No, it's still working. You make my jump height much higher. No, it's not. Okay. So I can double jump. Okay. You can see the number of jumps going down. It goes from 2 to 1 to 0. So that's good. Now let's try falling off the edge. And when I fall off the edge, right now I should still be able to double jump, I believe, because it doesn't check my grounded at all. Yeah, so I can still double jump when I go up. Now here's going to be maybe a problem. Well, no, maybe not. So you're saying when you walk off the edge, no jumping out. Okay. So what can I do here? To make sure that I can't jump when I fall off the edge. If I'm not grounded, there's no jump? You sure? So what does that mean? What do I write here? Do I write it in here? Do I write it somewhere else? Where do I write it? Like, what am I trying to do? Okay, so when it leaves the ground, what should it do? Let's try that. It's going to be a problem. Let's try it. Straight away, right? Number of jumps equals 0. Now this will be a problem, I think, because I think now my double jumps are not going to work. Yeah. So let's look at where's my script? It's immediately 0. Why? Because even when I jump, I'm already off the ground. So, how now? Now what do I do? You can. It's a little more complicated, but you can check a rule called falling, and you can check it if the vertical speed is negative, so you know that it's falling. But then we have almost a similar problem, because then if I jump one time and then it falls, it's already set to 0. It's hard, isn't it? It's the same thing, because right now I'm detecting the ground anyway. So even if I change it to a special collider, it still won't, you know. Anyway, let's go for a break and think about it over break. And when we come back, when I press play, let me jump. So my jump is like 800 the force, right? But when I press jump, it goes high the first time, but the second time, not so much. And then secondly, if I jump off the edge as well, if I press straight away, it's fine. Let me do it again. But, so if I press straight away, it's fine. I jump a little bit. But if I keep falling, it's not gonna, it doesn't even do anything. All right, do you know why? Or why do you think this? Exactly. So a jump, an add force is completely physics based. So it's adding a force. So if you think about it like if I've like a car and I push it a little bit, it's gonna roll. It's stopped and it's rolling. If I have a car that's moving the opposite way than me, completely, I can push it with the same force. It's not gonna do anything because it's already moving super fast. So that's exactly the same thing that's happening here. This thing is, it has force. Even when I'm jumping, it's already falling with gravity. So when I add another force, it's less. The jump is less. So how do I get around this? What do I need to do? Huh? Okay. So now it's 800. What do you think? Like rough number. Okay. Let's go crazy. Let's do 2000. 2500. Still the same problem. Why didn't falling? Oh wait. Why is it going straight to? No. Oh yes, because I'm dumb. Okay, so let's only minus the number of jumps if the number of jumps is 2. So if it's 1, let's not minus. Is that right? Yes. The number of jumps is the number of jumps is less than 0, and we get it. Let's make this a grounded one as well. Let's just test what I was doing here. This could just so let me make it like so I still have the same problem. It's jumping very little, right? Even though I made the jump force really high. So just going over what I did. So all I did was I put the minus number of jumps first, so it minuses the number before it adds the force. And then I had an else if. So if the number of jumps is less than 0 and the grounded is true, so it's on the ground, and then I press space, it's going to minus number of jumps and add the jump. But if the number of, it's basically the same. If the number of jumps is less than, actually I don't even, sorry? More than 0, yeah? Yeah. So I'm just checking. I don't even know if I need this. Do I need this at all? No, I don't think I need this. No, I don't think so. Let's test really quickly. Nope, I don't need that second bit. Yeah, yes. So I just made sure the number of jumps goes before to make sure that it goes first. And then in the on trigger exit, grounded is false when it leaves, and only if the number of jumps is more than one, I reduce the number of jumps. So if I haven't jumped at all, it will reduce, so it's only one. If I did jump, it's not going to touch it, so I can jump again one more time. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So now I need to figure out that problem. So we saw, even when I increase the jump force, the same problem still persists. That it's still, when I increase the jump force, it still sets it's still trying to fight the speed that it's falling. So what I might do, there's a number of things I can do, but let me try something. Let me try a velocity. So I want to change the velocity to 0. No, I want to do. See if that works. Okay, see this much better now? So what I'm doing is here, I'm setting a velocity. So there's a difference between the force and velocity. Velocity is like instant. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm saying change the velocity to a new vector 2, because I always need to declare a new vector 2. And then rb.velocity.x. So whatever your velocity is in the x direction, so keep doing it, because if I'm moving left and right, doesn't matter. And then set the y to 0. So when I press, let me make the jump stronger, so you can see it working. So you see the way it's much better now, like a proper jump. And even if I fall, I can still, if I press jump, it jumps exactly that. So that's a very game thing. Like when you jump, you always expect to have the same height every time. So when I press jump again, it's the same height. So if I double jump, I'll still have the same. Let's see. Yeah. Cool. What is your timetable, sir? Ah, yeah. So you're having 323, is it? Oh, I can't see your account here. What's your course number? Yeah, 323. I'll let you know. Let me just type the